We are Southern Illinois.
Oh, no, now Sykes takes it away. Sykes middle of 4 for SIU. Crosses over and dunks it in. Davion Sykes, that's called playing off two.
It's time for Saluki basketball.
Haynes has it in the short corner. Haynes snaking his way into the paint. Rollins is open. 3 for the tie. Near arc. Yes, sir. Rollins, a league bag, ties this game up. He's got 8 points, 5 in the second half. All tied up at 35. 10:55 to go till the end of the game. Haynes trying to get downhill at 9 with 8. Spinning. Low right block. He's bumped. He's fouled. And he made the bucket. Jalen Haynes with an and-one opportunity makes it 48-44 SIU. 1:24 on the game clock.
Now, here is the voice of the Salukis, Luke Martin.
Big time basketball game coming up here on Friday inside Banterra Center. Man, there's so much going on from Ag Night, of course, Mike Glenn, jersey retirement night as well. That's going to be a huge topic today on our podcast as well, because one of the gigantic Salukis of all time, Mike Glenn, will have what is no doubt a long overdue moment for him on Friday inside Banterra Center, and for it to be against the Murray State Racers in a game that now the Salukis got some momentum after what was just a fantastic win on the road against Illinois State on Wednesday night. With the Hall of Famer Ronnie Watson, I am Luke Martin. We have a great podcast for you today. Our counterparts at Murray, Kenny Roth and Jeff Bidwell, the Murray State radio broadcast crew, they will join us, and we'll have a great conversation, talk about the Racers and them bouncing back against UIC. Man, just a little bit of what an awkward game for them last night, mostly just because of the Elijah Crawford situation and getting ejected just only a minute into the game. And we'll ask him about that because we weren't there. We didn't get to watch it live and know of all the other situations that transpired too. But first things first, Rodney Watson, last night's game was exactly how we thought it would go. We predicted that to a T. Even more so, you looked at me when we found out that Damian Mayo wasn't going to play. You said, look, the Salukis are going to play their best defensive game of the year.
You're being very kind, because I did not say that. I was as sick as everybody else when we learned Damian wasn't going to play, because he's been playing so well. And I apologize to him for my approach at him after the game, talking about rebounding when he did such a marvelous job at 5 of 7 from 3, and then he can't go. And trust me, if that guy can't go, he can't go. I just hope that we'll get some good news about when it looks like he can come back and go again. But, that was a game where, I talk about the wounded animal theory about, man, you talk about a team that was officially the wounded animal. And Southern really showed something last night for 40 minutes. Golly, we talked about it at halftime. Okay, good 20 minutes, even though the last play of the first half didn't end the way they wanted. It's still a really good 20 minutes. Can they put 20 more together? Then it was the 30 minutes. We get through the third quarter. It's like, okay, there's 30 minutes now. Can you finish off the third? And then, of course, we talk about what we've been talking about all year long, the 6-minute game, the 4-minute game, the 3-minute game. And Southern played with a toughness and a rock fight mentality that I haven't yet seen for 40 minutes.
No, we were talking about heading into the game how the Saluki defense since January 1 was top 25 in the country. And, of course, after last night, I believe that's jumped up all the way to 10th. I mean, it's amazing what this Saluki defense has done, especially since the start of the year when they've really started to make that turn. And last year, that's about the time, not quite exactly the time, when the Salukis kind of changed their coaching approach, and Coach Nate was like, hey, I got to give this to you, Coach Hawk. But man, it is a night and day difference from just how the Salukis are guarding right now, Coach Watson. And a big reason for that is their defense on the perimeter is no joke. And I know that, because you see the comments, like I know there's going to be a lot of Redbird fans. They're going to be like, man, we just shot the ball so poorly. And is there some truth to that? Yeah, there's no doubt truth. Look, there's we always say it to a point that's probably annoying to folks, that I always love to say it because it is true. There's always a 50% equation in these games. It's not everything to an opponent. But now it's not by accident, Coach Watson, when you go, man, UIC didn't shoot the 3 well. Man, Illinois State didn't shoot the 3 well. Man, Belmont didn't shoot the 3 extremely well against Southern. You know what? It's about time that you go, yeah, it's because of Southern Illinois why teams are struggling to shoot the ball when you've had this many games in a row of teams really having a hard time of getting their star guys going on the perimeter.
The 27%, 27.7 going into the game, that really has my attention. Now, let me throw a piece in there, and this is the big difference we saw last night as opposed to what we saw most of January. They finished off their defense. So the percentages are fine, but the rebounding was where we saw a major difference on the defensive rebounding, because that's also part of the equation here. Just because you ask somebody to marry you doesn't mean she's going to go ahead and finish it off and marry you. And Southern wasn't able to finish off the marriage a lot in January. And last night, the toughness is where Southern gave up 8 offensive rebounds. They went and got 7 offensive rebounds, but they held a team that it's living on 10 offensive rebounds in Illinois State to be a big part of their offense. But there again, big factor in this, Illinois State, they made 6 threes. Southern made 1 3. And that's a real number. I'm just not trying to fit a number in to make us feel good. You throw that along with the defensive rebounding, now you're really starting to get somewhere.
Yeah, and you were exactly right. The rebounding margin was really important. It was the first time that Illinois State lost the rebounding margin since Indiana State, which that was also a loss for the Redbirds. Indiana State out-rebounded them 30-28. in that ball game, but -6, 41-35, an amazing rebounding effort. And as we described, Coach Watson going into the game, this was an Illinois State team, and still now, even after last night's performance, as we record this on Wednesday, they're 5th in the country in their rebounding percentage defensively. I mean, this has been a group that's done a great job of getting defensive rebounds themselves, and for Southern to beat them to the punch and really bring the fight, not just for small snippets, but for really 40 minutes. It's hard for me to think back to the game last night, and this is what's really encouraging moving forward. It's hard for me to think at any point last night where you go, man, there was a major lapse defensively, or even stretches where there are major lapse, or where at times, we've talked about it. I don't think it's any secret where, man, maybe the switching at times can hurt Southern in a certain matchup happens and all of a sudden an easy bucket transpires. Man, there was not a lot of that last night in the win at Illinois State.
Southern continues to play with aggressive hands. They had 7 steals last night, Illinois State 6. You say, well, that's a slim margin. It's really a trade-off. Well, no, because when you have a whole bunch of knots that we have seen, especially in that month of January, it's a tough month. For Southern, again, let's get back to one of your best defensive players, if not your best defensive player, wasn't playing in the game, and Damian Mayo. So let's make sure we keep that in the forefront of our mind. Southern went heavier with their top 6 guys in minutes. The beauty of that is because Southern used their bench very much like we're going to hear from Murray State, how teams are using their bench. We've talked about it all year long, how important the bench is and how important it has the depth, because now you can get away in a game like that. And here's the cool thing. I mean, Southern still played – they played 10 guys. Max Picard didn't have a good run at the end of the first half, and he didn't get in the second half. But I'll tell you what, you can't diminish what Jorge Moreno and Jaheim Weber did in that game, especially on the defensive end. Their ability, Rollins, you know what you're getting with Rollins, man. You know what you're getting on every phase. Defense, rebounding, and offense, you know what he's going to give you. But for him to have a couple of teammates, a couple of buddies, he described it great to us after the game, where they have a big man core, to just keep coming at the preseason player of the year, Chase Walker, and he's a really good player. He's a horse. He's transformed his body over his college career. You can tell he's really taken this game serious. A guy that averages a bunch of points, he gets 12 in this game because he kept going one-on-one with horses inside. Man, we cannot overlook the 12 minutes that Jorge Moreno and Jaheim Weber gave this team last night in that victory. It was gigantic to help keep in one of, if not the best player, and probably won't end up being the best player of the league by vote, but certainly one of the best players in this league to 12 points, and it made every possession hard for him.
Ty Pence, who scored over 20 points in the first meeting, a goose egg, only 2 shot attempts. Bowden Scumberg, who has had some really good games down the stretch here. Again, missed his last game against Murray because of an illness, played 20 minutes, only 1 shot attempt. Didn't even get a 3 up in the game. And I was even telling you on the radio, Coach Watson, what was even more impressive about that is you look at Bowden Scumberg and his numbers this year. I mean, he had 2 made threes against Southern the first time. This guy who's made 40 threes on the season, and he was 6 of 9 from 3 against UNI in their last home game that they had, in the last game that he played, prior to, of course, the Belmont game as well, being there on the road. Point being, for you to hold Pence, Claybo as well, really good freshman, Skunberg, 0 points, and then the 3 guys that scored in double figures, you had Wolf, 11 points on 11 shots. Kinziger, 10 points on 13 shots, 1 of 6 from 3. And Chase Walker, 12 points on 13 shots. Not efficient numbers. And again, that is a major credit to what the Salukis were able to do defensively. And remind you again, doing that without Damian Mayo.
I'll tell you, man, Southern did a great job of not letting Kinziger get his head up. Yeah, he got 10 points, and that accounted for their 10 of their 19 bench points. Kinziger's a starter, just like Jalen Haynes is a starter. Haynes now starts this game for a while, and they had to last night. And Q became a starter as well. But the job they did on Kinziger and not taking him for granted, knowing and staying, locked in. Again, they did a terrific job on Wolf. They did a great job on Landon Moore, whose 3 on the left wing back in December 18th was really the biggest backbreaker, in my opinion, of the game. Doherty came in and got a 3. Both of us said, "Uh-oh, did we just wake the sleeping bear here?" And he goes 0 for 3 in his next shot. So Southern is doing a great job of challenging the threes, and last night they could finish off that great challenge, because it all goes for naught if you don't get an offense, you don't get the defensive rebound, and they did it last night. There's just nothing more to say, but man, Southern earned that victory on the defensive end. 54-50 never looked so beautiful as it did in Normal, Illinois.
Well, and even further to that point, again, if you just look at box score, which again, there is a lot that you can get from a box score in a game. I don't want to diminish and be like, the box score never tells the true story. But where I'm going, and you'll probably know where I'm going with it. You look at Davion Sykes' line. 31 minutes, 3 of 8 from the field, 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 turnover, 1 steal, 6 points. May not overwhelmingly pop, and go, wow, you need to circle what he did. But man, you felt him. The Redbirds felt him. The defensive plays that he made in that game, but also the timing of his buckets just came at really key times. And we'll get into it with Murray State as well, with Jeff and Kenny, later on our podcast and I don't know if you want to go into it here, but it's so important of a player to know when you're coming and going in a game. And I think for Davion, it got funky. And that's just a fact. It got funky in December. And a lot of those things were out of a lot of people's control of why it got funky. But I really thought last night, when it was clear, hey, this is when you're coming in, this is what we need you to do, you saw him just perform at extremely high level. There is a ton in that guy. We talked about in our last podcast of how essential he's going to be here down the stretch. I didn't want to say he's more essential than anybody else. Man, you want to talk about having a ton left in your fuel tank, especially as a senior. Man, that guy showed it last night in so many, way more than what just a typical box score would show.
You said the key word right there, Luke, the senior. And here's a guy, and you're right, man, coming and going. John Cherry's the one that told me when I was a young coach as an assistant, and then he reminded me often when I was at Southern Indiana, because he coached at Carbondale High School. He played as a college player at SIU. He kept reminding me, Rodney, you've got a lot of guys on your bench. They want to know when they're coming and going. You've got to do your best to make sure they have regularity. And you add this on Davion Sykes, and this is a personal note, and I know you feel this way, and probably 10 times stronger because you're around him much more than I am. But when you get to know Davion Sykes, and if you're worried about the state of college basketball, about do kids go to class? Is it really meaningful? Are we really trying to teach young men? And all these lessons that we always talk about that really are true. Davion Sykes is about all of it. He is a great guy. I had this conversation with my wife on the way home from from the game last night. I just talked about how happy I was to see him. It wasn't the 31 minutes necessarily, because that's not what he's begging for. He just wants to know when he's coming and going, and Southern did a great job with that last night. And I think it started the game before that. But, man, I'll tell you what, Davion, he's a guy that when you talk about the school part of it, he's not faking you out. He's serious about this. He's really bright. He's really a great student. He really knows where this is going to take him someday, he understands the key to the real pot of gold. And to see him have this success. Now, back, how's that relate on the court? He's a totally different animal in that court, man. He's not the nice guy. He's not saying, excuse me, when he comes through. You watch his feet on defense. His feet are apart. I talked about being the key to the game. For Southern's defense to get better, especially inside guarding the arc, they've got to be able to get their footwork better. They've got to get their feet apart. They've got to guard guys with their chest. And Davion's a guy that the man that he's guarding knows what they're getting with him. You made a great point. It really alluded to Jalen Haynes, but also to Sykes as well. Illinois State heard footsteps in transition last night when Southern was coming at them. They heard the horses coming down the path. One of them was Sykes and one of them was Haynes, and they were looking over their left shoulder, and one time they veered out, and you said on the air, and you were right on the money. Man, I think that was a film defensive play right there, because they saw those guys smacking the ball at the rim. That's what Sykes, that's what Haynes, that's what they bring to this team, another element that not a lot of guys have. They never give up on transition buckets. Man, when you got guys doing that in February, that is impressive.
Well, and Coach Nagy told us after the game, and I thought it was very pointed by him, that he had a conversation with his team. And he asked his team a simple question. He said, what's our identity? He said, what is our identity as a team? And he said, nobody had an answer. And he's like, that's a really telling sign, that we are collectively here as a group, and there's not one person that without a doubt, without hesitation, can say, this is our identity. And he's like, you guys need to basically group together, come back, and make a decision. What's our identity going to be? And the team came back and said, defense. Defense is our identity. And Coach Nagy, again, he told us post-game, all right, well, I'm going to hold you guys to it. Man, oh, man, and Coach Nagy said it, I'm not used to winning games this way. Just win the games. And I'm saying, like, Coach Nagy, it may not be in his DNA of this is exactly the way he wants it to be. And maybe when he got here that this was exactly his vision of how it would turn out. But you know what? You adjust as you go throughout the season. Man, you have credited him in a lot of games to be willing to make adjustments, to divvy from a game plan within a game that may not be working. And that's a huge credit to him and his team, and for the group as a whole, from everybody down. That's why the game was so impressive. It wasn't just, hey, Rollins of League Bay dominated with 12 rebounds, and 10 of them were defensive rebounds. Calvin House, 4 defensive boards. Drew Steffi, 4 defensive boards. Davion Sykes, 5 defensive boards. Jalen Haynes chipped in 3 as well. But a lot of those that I mentioned, Coach Watson, were guys that you were making the point after UIC. You just can't have Rollins and Prince for the most part this year. You can't say, hey, that's the League Bay family. They're the only ones that can go and clean up the boards. Man, it was everybody last night. And there were so many times where it was multiple guys colliding for the ball. Man, you can live with that the rest of the year.
You make the great point, and I'm so glad you brought it up, because I wanted to talk about it. All hands on deck and rebounding. If you're good enough to have a uniform, then you're good enough to get a rebound. And Southern did it last night. It was a big reason why Illinois State just could not get into any rhythm. They couldn't get any cleanup buckets. They couldn't get any clean looks. But man, Southern was in a rock fight. That defense that they play, man, that they played last night. Let's not scheme anymore, guys. Let's stop scheming. Let's just rely on rock fight effort, because that's what you saw. That's what's winning. And yeah, you got to know who can do what. And I thought one of the best decisions of the night, the way it played out, and I didn't see it coming, when they took Chase Walker one-on-one, and they didn't give up those kickouts. They didn't give up any sexy looks. It was one-on-one, He took a three, went 1 for 2 from there. He took a couple floaters. Nothing came easy. And you know what happens when you get three big dudes coming at you? You get tired because Walker ended up playing 22 minutes. He had foul trouble. Look, they played him at the 6-minute mark with 2 fouls in the first half, and it's why players hate it. It's why fans hate it. But when you get that third foul, and it was a complete clear out push off to get an offensive rebound right in front of official, it has to happen. And man, Southern made the game so hard for him. But collective effort and rebounding is so much part of your defense. It's way more. Look, I'm proud of that for these guys for that 27% on the 3-point line. But it really doesn't mean anything if your rebounding is in the negative side. So big congratulations to Southern for just, hey man, they outfought them dudes last night. Beautiful.
Well, it's funny how seasons can go, and I say that because of, look, when you're in our situations, you really get ingrained with your teams. And what I'm referring to is, before the game yesterday, we're talking to our good friends John Fitzgerald and Mike Matthews, and one of the first questions they had was, who's going to guard Calron House? That was a big worry for them, and turns out was a worry. 22 points for Q, and I made the joke with them post game. I think he wants to play against the Redbirds almost every night. 44 points in 2 games, 22 points in each of those games. It's the first time for him scoring over 20 since the Illinois State game there in mid-December. But it was just the look that Q had. And, yeah, I know it's going to keep coming back to it here, but as great as he was offensively, and he was phenomenal. He had the best plus-minus in the game, +7 with Drew Steffi. And he did have 4 turnovers in the game, only 2 fouls, but it was his aggressiveness defensively that, there were so many times where you and I were both describing, he is right in the grill of whoever it was. Ball pressure that we have talked about at times is so key to this Saluki defense. Q is a big reason for it, and as he shared post-game, and actually it wasn't him, it was Rollins who shared it initially, he was challenged, and I was there, and I saw the challenge, and it was a big-time challenge by Steve Hawkins to Q in practice. And, man, it was really great to see Q respond.
Isn't that the truth? It's one thing when you get coached up. It's another thing to be willing to be coached up. And I still say, people say, oh, it's a different era. You can't coach the way you used to. Baloney. You can coach the way you used to because the players will call you later in life and say, man, I'm glad you're on me. Does it feel good when when the truth's being told? No, it didn't feel good. Heck, it didn't feel good to say it. We talk about that stuff all the time, but players will respond when it's truthful and it's honest because they don't want to be a worse player. They want to be a better player. And sometimes you can't say it like you want to in the New Testament with love and joy. It's got to be some fire and brimstone. And, man, it's great to see Q. And you could see the look in his eye. It's like, man, he was into me. And it's working. The thing that Q fell into was he was falling into being too handsy, trying to get steals and running with guys. And that was part of I'm just not talking about Q when I talk about footwork. I'm talking about, heck, everybody in college basketball. But I don't care about anyone except for USI and Southern Illinois. And I want to see those guys in the stance their feet apart. Man, Q was a pain in the neck. The other thing Q did a great job with, he put pressure on Illinois State's defense for the first time in a long time, probably before this groin thing he's been dealing with. He was able to get to his spots, and he was able to find the mismatches he liked. I thought Southern did a great job on Kinzinger. I know Drew Steffi was doing it for sure. When he could get Kinzinger on a switch on him, he was getting to a hot spot. Q got to his mid-range jumper hot spot where he's got that slight leaner that he's so effective with because he can get to the place that he knows he's got enough leg to be able to get enough strength to get it with arc and so forth. And, man, he was super effective with that. His turnovers, a lot of them were, he was like the one that we can think of was the Sykes in transition 3-on-2. He got talked into that a little bit now, in all fairness. There was a lot of energy on the bench talking about a push. And sometimes it's hard for me when I was coaching there's times I just got to be quiet and let it play out. And I take there's, the turnovers are what they are, but Q was really in a good spot in that game. And then, let's not kid ourselves, man. 39 minutes, 22 points. Southern's got to have those efforts out of him for us to be good. Here's a big reason why. with the exception of Valparaiso on January 1st, Southern, since in 2026 in regulation, okay, Drake was an overtime game, has not scored 70 points in 40 minutes, except for Valpo. This is going to be a team, for them to say anything other than being a defensive team, they're kidding themselves. That has to be the answer. Like, look, we don't have the high power scoring. Our possessions have been down a little bit as well, but the reality is we got to rock fight people, man. It's not just a pretty defense. It's a flat out get after you, get physical. Don't say excuse me. Make sure your fouls are smart. That's where Southern was great. We said it throughout the game. Because you don't have the depth in Mayo, the guards have to be smart with the fouls that they pick up. They can't give fouls away. It's got to be hard-earned, honest fouls. Illinois State shoots 10 free throws in their own building, and they go 6 for 10 because their heart rate was up. And, man, Southern was beautiful in all areas like that.
Well, you talk about things being beautiful, and I'm going to put it up on the screen too. You were a meme after the game, by the way. I mean, you were being passed around on Saluki social media. I believe it was Saluki Cinema. You know, I mean, Coach Watson, I mean, how did that feel when Jordan Cruz, when we were on our drive home, that of many things that we were talking about at the game, man, you front and center. I mean, people watch this thing, man. They watch it.
Me and Saluki Nation are one. We are talking the same language. They've had enough, as I have, and it's time to start getting things cleaned up and get going. I love the Salukis, man. It's great to be a part of this whole thing because it's real, and it's great to bleed maroon and always will.
Yeah, no doubt. Before we move on from Illinois State, I do want to talk about Jalen Haynes specifically, and we've already talked about Jalen in touches and spurts in our segue here of, you know, recapping the win against Illinois State. But man, I went back, I rewatched it when I got home late in the early morning here in Carbondale, and just the bucket and the move he made to the rim to get the and one, which virtually, I mean, it didn't seal the game at that point, but that was the bucket. I mean, that was the bucket that really flipped it to where you're like, yep, Salukis feel really good about their chances to win this game, in conjunction with, of course, what he did defensively the whole game. But it's not by accident, Coach Watson, and it's so important. And as you have said, it's not easy as a coach. And we're going to talk about with Kenny Roth and Jeff Bidwell of, you know, Roman Doman for Murray State of, man, he's been so good off the bench. How would it look like in a starting role? And it looked just fine the other night for them against UIC. But the point is you don't want to screw something up, you know, when it clearly works. But my point is saying it's hard to know who are the right guys you need in clutch time. You know, who do we look like when the game is on the line? I thought it was really important of one, who was in the game for Southern in the game against Illinois State. And man, the confidence level those guys showed, and specifically Jalen in that moment. He was a guy that didn't look like a timid freshman at all. He was saying, get the ball in my hands, I'm going to make a play. And man, he did, and went and made a huge basket and made the and one free throw.
I got a text this morning from a friend of mine. He said, man, I just love Jalen. He's so smooth. I go, here's the thing. That guy, along with several, but especially Rollins, and these two guys together, he does all the dirty work and he makes it look smooth. That play that you're referring to with 124, that was the dagger, man. There was nothing smooth in just, you know, when you're in a gym by yourself and you practice that move with an imaginary defender, yeah, that's smooth. That can look smooth. Man, those guys, look, Illinois State, we're not kidding. Their defense is the thing that's impressed me the most throughout this year. They've gotten really serious about using their veterans, how many veterans they have that came back. And look, they're going to be in this thing. Let's not count them dudes out. They're going to be fully in the middle of this thing come March. But for Jalen to make a play at 124 to look so smooth, that's so tough. Because when he changed direction and then got down the lane, we've seen the length, we've seen the athleticism, but those guys from Illinois State, they're trying to knock him out. And, they were like, they didn't care how they fouled him, what happened. They didn't want that ball going in the basket, and Jalen found a way. It's his toughness that just continues to impress. And here's the next part along with the toughness. We saw it. We really saw it. I mean, can't go back in time, and this is just the way things work. But his injury at halftime at North Dakota State really, really hurt the complexity of the non-conference season. Because I'm not saying it's going to be different. North Dakota State earned the win. I'm not saying any other way. Man, I like to have Jalen Haynes available for the last 20 minutes in that game. He continued to be really good in non-conference. And we know that scouting in non-conference is always good. But we know what's coming next. You're coming with Valley teams that are watching you play your 11 games, regardless of when you play. So they're scouting you even harder because they have bigger sample size. We saw a little bit of thinking, he's hit the scouting thing early. He hit the scouting thing, and let's see how he can respond. Wow, has he responded to Valley scouting and just continues to take off. He's no longer a freshman. He's a veteran. And then finally, and I'll get back to you on this, our interview with Q at the end. And I forget, too, and you made a great point. It's like you forget, you feel like Q's a senior. And the guy's a sophomore, but he plays anything but like a sophomore. And he says to me, that's my guy, man. I have complete confidence. And he was not kidding. He wanted that ball in his hands as much as he wanted his own hands. And we know how much Q wants the ball in his hands. And for him to say it just like that and be genuine and sincere, that's where this team's starting to grow. And you say, oh, come on, relax. It's just one win. Man, any win, when you see how guys react to wins and how their body looks and how their smiles and their quick reaction in question and answer, you really start seeing what this team's about.
Well, and again, the adjusted defense that we talked about, and again, I'm putting it up on the screen for our fans to see. I think I quoted it as 10th since January 1. It's actually 13th since January 1, but why I wanted to bring that up, Illinois State, 35th in the country in adjusted defense since January 1 as well. Guess what? Right behind Southern Illinois. Those are the two best defensive teams in the league. Shouldn't have been so. And we said that, too, going into the game. We said, these are two really good defensive teams. I don't think either of us felt it would be exactly the rock fight that it ended up being, but we knew numbers-wise and stat-wise, two really good defensive teams. And that's also why I think, and I know the Redbird fans today as we record this, no doubt are down in the dumps, but because of how they play defense, that will keep them in a lot of games and have chances. Scumber will get healthy and all those things. Illinois State and Coach Peden, no doubt they will find a way to figure it out. But what a big win for SIU on the road against Illinois State. And it's just funny when you look at those series history things, right, Coach Watson, of mentioned how against Northern Iowa, Southern was trying to win consecutive times against Northern Iowa for the first time since whenever it was, 2019, 2018. Illinois State still has not beaten Southern Illinois in consecutive games since 2018, 2019. Wow. It has been a back-and-forth series between the two, Southern getting win number 90 last night in their series history. And then this is what's the big shocker. You look at the last 7 meetings in Sefco Arena, which you know how hard it is to win there. Salukis have won 4 of the last 7, 4-3 in the last 7 games at Sefco Arena, which is really hard to believe because, man, even in my previous stop at Indiana State, Sefco Arena, formerly Redbird Arena, man, has not been kind to a lot of teams in the Missouri Valley Conference. Coach Watson, and now let's look at the rest of the league and what transpired on Tuesday night. Northern Iowa had the night off, so they were the lone team that did not play in the Valley. UIC, they go on the road to Murray State. We'll talk to the Racers here in just a moment, and Jeff Bidwell and Kenny Roth. 81-74 was the final, and no doubt the story was what happened at the start of the game. Elijah Crawford gets taken out. He was called for a flagrant 2. After review, Ryan Miller posted on Twitter, and I put this up as well. He was defending his guy on Twitter and social media and understand all of that. And we'll ask Kenny and Jeff from their viewpoint of exactly what happened in the game. We talked about it. Look, it's tough. I really believe in these games because these games are so important. And according, to the officials in the game, they thought it was clear and apparent. And that is their call. To me, it just to remove a player from a game, it's got to be egregious. And look, and you're going to have Racer fans that are like, Luke Martin, how could you not think that was egregious? And you're going to have the UIC fans go, are you kidding me? That's what you're going to show. And there are no doubt good points that Kenny Roth will bring up of where the ball was compared to where the contact came. It wasn't close to where the ball was. But at the same standpoint, I don't think he just flat hammered a guy with a closed fist. And when we heard punch, we're like, whoa, like we really want to see it. It happened. I don't want that to be the story here of this game because Murray played a spectacular game to be able to win it at home. But I was disappointed that Elijah Crawford was tossed from the game because I feel like that's something that I don't know. I don't know how you feel about it, but it didn't sit well with me. It was something where when you have to watch a clip multiple times to really get a feel for what happened, to me it wasn't clear and obvious that it should have been an ejection. But I'm sure you can have a lot of people tell me, Luke, you're crazy, and by the rule, this is what should have happened. But it was if we were doing a UIC podcast today, it would be a really tough conversation, I think, that we would be having.
The part I've not heard anyone say, the NBA, when they go review NBA F1, F2s, they always talk about the windup. There was no windup. That's what doesn't settle well with us. Look, I don't know what was going through Elijah's mind, but something after watching him play, and it doesn't have anything to do with us interviewing him, okay? Because once you get in competition, all bets are off, right? There was no windup. In the NBA, there's got to be a windup, an intent. And there was no windup. It was a punch. And I'm speaking for the kid here. You're in a defensive stance. You're a minute into the game. It's not like there's conflict going on back and forth. He anticipates the ball coming down. He's going to do the football punch out. Is that an F1? Sure. Is it a common foul? Absolutely. Is it an F1? Probably. There was no windup, Luke. That's what doesn't set well with me. It's like, look, you wind up and crack a guy in the jaw just for whatever reason it is, who knows? You got to sit out. But that's what I'm bugged with.
Rashawn Washington, he did all he could in that game, 22 points, 8 of 11 from the floor. He was 2 of 4 from 3 with 12 rebounds, a double-double for him. And Ahmad Henderson was great off the bench too, 20 points, which Jeff Bidwell talks about his effort here in a matter of moments. But Roman Doman, he earns the start, 18 points, 8 rebounds for him. Fred King, another double-double, 16 points, 14 rebounds, 6 of 9 shots from the floor, made 4 of 7 free throws. Again, 4 of the 5 starters for Murray, all in double figures. And just, again, be interested to see if that continues for Murray State this weekend as they come into Banterra on Friday. But, man, Roman Doman, we knew when we saw him how good he was. And, man, if you don't – I mean, I've said it multiple times. If for some reason that dude isn't jumping off the page to you, then there's a lot of question marks that you got to have.
What a pro. I mean, just another young pro, another great freshman in our league. And come enjoy him, folks. I mean, he's a good player. I remember getting a phone call from somebody when I was coaching at Southern Indiana. Murray State was playing in the OVC, but they came to play a non-conference game during Coach Henson's era, I believe it was. And this guy called me and said, man, I just saw the best point guard I've ever seen in the arena. I go, really? He goes, yeah, Ja Morant is unbelievable. And, now there's some things gone haywire with him, but as far as talent-wise, enjoy the talent, folks. I mean, it's golly, I can get you tickets at Gamebridge through my son, and it's going to cost you over $100 to watch these guys later. But go ahead and come watch them now because it's going to cost you a whole lot less than that, and it's worth the value of entertainment. And that just starts with one guy, but man, up and down the roster, I keep talking about Lane Taylor, their point guard from Central Arkansas. I didn't realize he was such a high-level scorer in high school. But when you talk about some of the Razorbacks that had played in that state, and Corliss Williamson is one, thinking about, man, his numbers he hung in high school. I don't care what level of high school you played at. Man, it's showing up with his terrific assist-to-turnover record, really running this basketball team from Murray State. Their bench is deep. It's talented. I'm seeing it, though. I mean, I'm seeing it with everybody. The benches, people are still playing, but they're minutes on the bench. They're not getting starter minutes anymore. Gosh, you make a great point, later on about the minutes played by Murray in this game as opposed to what it was when we played them in December. They didn't have a guy playing, gosh, in December when we played them on the 20th. I'm not sure with anybody playing over 27, 28 minutes. They had spread them out so much. Well, those are starting to condense, just like Southern and like everyone else. And Murray is loaded with talent. And can they ever score that basketball?
Yes, they can. As Murray gets the win, 81-74 over UIC, as the Racers now 17-7 overall, 9-4 in league play, and they snap that 4-game skid before they get into Banterra Center here on Friday night. Thumping in Evansville in the Ford Center. Indiana State and Matthew Graves. The Sycamores go on the road. They led by 17 at halftime. They outscore the Aces by 4 in the second half to win it 84-63 as the Sycamores get their third win of Valley play. Man, St. Bernard off the bench, 18 points in 22 minutes. He was 8 of 10 from the floor. He had 9 rebounds, just 1 rebound short of a double-double. But Marcus Harding, sight for sore eyes for Sycamore fans to see him have the type of night that he did. 18 points, 5 rebounds. He was 3 of 5 from 3. And that, I'm sure, is an area that Coach Graves would pinpoint. They shot really well from 3. 13 of 27 in the game. That proved to be a really big factor in the ball game for Indiana State. And for Evansville, they had a great effort again by Leif Mueller. They do get Connor Turnbull back, but he only played in 15 minutes, and 15 minutes, 7 rebounds for him. But, man, the Aces just have really struggled here, Coach Watson. And as we'll hear Jeff and Kenny describe later on, I don't think it's any secret. They're probably clearly right now team number 11 in the league. But just ask Drake if they would be thrilled about to see Evansville potentially in Arch Madness, because they were down by 19 to them in their own building. And Evansville, it was a tough game for them as well back in the Ford Center against Drake, that they felt like they really let that game go. But a tough night for Evansville, but a tremendous night for Indiana State to win that game by 21 on the road.
All credit to Indiana State, and they have a very similar conversation that the Salukis have. They've had the the luck factor thing that Jake and everybody's talking about, that where possessions can fall one way or the other. Most recently with Valparaiso in their overtime loss at home. But Luke, there's talent on Evansville's team, and I'm not. David Ragland's my good friend, and I enjoyed visiting with him whenever we get a chance to. And that's not a statement on any of that. It's just, that's another team in this league. If you go in there thinking let's just get this one over with, you're going home with a loss, because they got enough talent. They have guys on that team that starts for most teams in this league. Muller's starting to really figure it out. He's figuring out that he's got to be a score first type guy. But with his size, 6'7", he's starting to do that. They up and down the list. AJ Casey is another guy that he can hurt you. There's enough tools there, and in 40 minutes, they've had enough games like that. They're gonna get somebody, and just hope it's not the Salukis, because do not sleep on anyone. I know our friends are going to talk a little bit different than I would talk, but on Thursday, and shoot, any day of the week, you don't want to play Evansville either. I mean, I guess you're taking over everybody else, but don't think you're just going to walk in and walk out and they're going to hand you one and then go get their pizza, because they are not playing that way.
Bradley and Valpo, the game in Peoria, and it was another entertaining one between these two teams. Bradley gets the win 72-65. Ahmet Junovic had a 12.6 rebound game for him. It was Montana Wheeler off the bench. He had 18 points, 7-11 from the floor. Bradley wins the game, and don't want to say Jaquan Johnson was not a major factor, but in 24 minutes, he only had 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover for Bradley, but they earned the win 72-65. Beacon's another good effort by OND, 16 points for him. He made 2 threes, 2 of 3 from behind the arc, but Justice McNair had a great game off the bench. 17 points, 7 of 13 from the floor, 2 of 5 from 3 for McNair. Biggest reason, Valpo, they struggled with the turnovers. 12 turnovers, a team that doesn't typically turn it over a ton, but 12 turnovers in that game for Valpo. as they come up on the short end, 72-65 the final. Bradley now 16-8. And, we're going to get to the league standings here in a moment, but there are, I think, multiple teams that have been talked about, but it's like the one team that's just lingering right there towards the top of the league that I don't think anyone is talking about is Bradley. Bradley is kind of right there, and it just seems like everyone's talking about all these other teams, but Bradley holds serve at home against a Valpo team that we know and Saluki Nation knows, that I'll be reminded of how good they are. Beacons fall to 5-7 now in the Missouri Valley Conference.
Bradley defends. Maybe they're not as good as they have been, but they defend, and they know the thing that Coach Wardle, he's not faked out what it takes in this season, this long, treacherous season of college basketball, and he doesn't let his guys stray very far from the message on whatever it is. But you can think Bradley's maybe not. I mean, they're not in the hunt for the championship necessarily, but we saw what sickness did to Illinois State. All of a sudden, the equalizer can screw things up. Don't sleep on Bradley. Don't sleep on Valpo either. Don't think that they're slipping either. Their depth is starting to be a factor because they're getting some good productions out of people. And we know how hard it is to win at Bradley, but don't ever feel sorry for the Bradley Braves.
Well, and keep in mind, Bradley still has home dates to go with Belmont, Illinois State, their rival, and Murray State. So they get those three teams in their building, and then they have to still go on the road to Northern Iowa, which they will on Friday, Southern Illinois, Valpo, and UIC. So, I mean, tough stretch upcoming for the Bradley Braves. But as you said, man, are they really in the thick of it? To me, when you got this many games to go, when you're at the 13-game mark and 7 games left, you're only behind 2 games. And you play a team that's in front of you still in your building with Belmont. I know there may not be a lot of chatter of like, hey, look out for Bradley to have a chance to win this thing. But to answer your point, they're in it. They're in a position that I know, no doubt, SIU would love to be in right now. 9-4 in the league, tied with Murray State right now for that second spot. The last game before we get to the league standings, Belmont again, they put up 103 points on Drake. They win it 103-90. They were up at halftime, 51-43. How about back-to-back 50-point abs for Casey Alexander and his team? Sam Orm led him in scoring, 22 points, 4 of 6 from 3, 17 threes made in the game for the Belmont Bruins. Proved to just be a major factor, and they only had 5 turnovers in the game. How about 25 assists to 5 turnovers in the game for Belmont? Man, they play such a fun style. Drew Sharnowski, 3 rebounds short of a double-double, but 19.7 rebounds, 3 assists. And then another great player off the bench, Jack Smiley, 18 points, 7 of 9 shooting from the floor. Super efficient night for him. And yet again, the Belmont Bruins, they keep that 2-game lead atop the league. Win number 21 on the season. 21-3, 11-2 in the league. Drake now, they fall to 12-12, 6-7 in the Valley.
When you've got a guy like Brigham Rogers that comes off the bench for Belmont that we don't even talk about, but we do talk about Moreno and Weber, how important they are to Rollins. He's that important, or if not more, because offensively he can get guys in good spots. He's a terrific passer, but he's really helped Sharnowski become a candidate for some big awards coming up later on. But I am so impressed with what their young guys, just like with Jalen, how he's handled scouting reports. So impressed with what those freshmen you speak of for Belmont, and whether they're true freshmen or redshirt, doesn't matter. First-year guys in college basketball, how they're handling scouting reports, how they are productive, how they produce. It's pretty impressive. Again, I'll say it later on this show, and I'm going to say it again. I wouldn't think Vanderbilt's calling Belmont, asking them how many times they want to play next year, because let's go ahead and tell all Nashville, Missouri Valley, how good Belmont is in this league, and because they are legit, and they're a team that, man, I don't think anybody wants to play anytime soon.
Let's go ahead and look at those league standings now. Belmont 11-2 overall in the Missouri Valley Conference. Here's what's crazy, Coach Watson. There will not be a team that goes undefeated at home this year in league play. Southern didn't seal that. It was the second home loss for Illinois State, but Belmont's lost to Southern. That's their lone home loss right now. Should be no surprise that the three teams that are in the top three spots are all 6-1 at home. They've taken care of home court to this point better than anybody in the league. Belmont 5-1 on the road too, and that's where you just gotta tip your cap to Coach Alexander. So they lead the league by 2 games over Murray State. They've already beaten Murray State once. Bradley right there, tied with the Racers at 9-4. UIC, a game behind of Bradley and Murray in the 4th spot. They're a half game ahead of Illinois State, who falls down to 7-5. Again, they're 1 game behind UIC in the win column. They're tied in the loss column, but UIC does hold that tiebreaker, at least as of now, because they've already played once and UIC won it. Northern Iowa at 6-6. Again, they had the off night on Tuesday night. Drake 6-7. Again, tied in the win column, but 1 game back in the loss column of UNI. Valpo, they're tied in the loss column of Drake at 5-7, but 1 game back, of course, in the win column. Salukis, they get that win that at least edges them closer to that log jam that we know is going to be there at some point. We'll see how long of a log jam it will be. And then Indiana State, they now split the regular season series with Evansville, and they're up 2 games on the Aces, 3-10, and Evansville at 1-11 in the Missouri Valley Conference. And again, this isn't the dig, but I told you there may not be a team that will go unbeaten at home. But now the Aces 0-6 in the Ford Center this year right now in league play. The Aces trying to avoid going winless at home in the Ford Center, and that would be a total surprise if that would continue throughout the year, knowing Coach Ragland and his team. Let's look at the games on Friday night, which, of course, everyone has the attention of what's going to happen in Carbondale. Southern, they will host Murray State. Of course, that's the game everybody has their eyes on that will start at 7 o'clock, but other league games that also start at 7. Bradley at Northern Iowa. That game will be on CBS Sports Network starting at 7. Drake, they'll head into Sefcue Arena. That game will be on ESPN Plus at 7 o'clock. Evansville, they will head up north within the state to the Arc to take on Valpo. That is also a 7 p.m. tip. And then Belmont at UIC. That will be an 8 p.m. tip from Chicago. What a game that will be between the Flames and Bruins. We'll see if the Bruins can stay hot as they head to Chicago to take on UIC. It's just a small thing, Coach Watson. I know it's probably even tougher on a Friday night. But man, it aggravates me when all the games are so close together. I wish it was more spread out. It's frustrating when out of the 5 league games that 4 of them start at the same time. Just because, man, we're big basketball junkies and we want to see those games.
Yeah, the thing that kind of bugs me, quite frankly, I know television dictates a lot of what we're doing, but Friday night basketball, high school basketball games are big in Southern Illinois. They're big throughout the state. I'm not sure we're not outthinking ourselves on this deal a little bit when we really got to get people in our building. So, you know, we understand what people with their allegiance to their high school teams, and yet, you know, not only are the games close together so we can watch the Missouri Valley games, Friday night is probably not the wisest time to be playing college basketball, but you know, we somewhat think certain things are important and so forth. We'll see how it plays out. If you're not at your local high school game, gosh, come out and watch a really good game with Southern Illinois, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Well, let's do it. Let's get into our interview this week. It's first time we're going to go with the 4 split screen here on the broadcast and here on the podcast. Kenny Roth, Jeff Bidwell, they are the Murray State radio crew for the Racers, and let's welcome them on and dive in and preview the Murray State Racers coming in here on Friday night. As we know, with the Racers, it's hard to give a lot of compliments, but the one biggest compliment that we can always give is our favorite guys. Join us. It's the Murray State radio broadcast crew, Jeff Bidwell, the voice, Kenny Roth, who's been just a staple as well, part of that broadcast through so many years as the analyst. We are spoiled in this league with really good broadcasters, and it's no question that these 2 guys are our best team that we enjoy listening to when we're on the road, when we're not on the air. Jeff, Kenny, thanks so much for joining Rodney and I here as we preview this game on Friday. And I think both teams now feel a lot different about themselves about 24 hours after I asked you guys to come on. Huge win for the Racers last night against UIC. And we'll start with you, Jeff.
I defer to Kenny. I mean, this is an age before beauty thing, so I'll let him go first. He gets so few perks in this job, and he lets me know about it all the time. So I'll let him fire with the opening salvo.
Well, I don't run a multimedia operation like Jeff Bidwell does. So
One might call it an empire, but that's okay.
I'm just a lowly insurance ex-coach. All us coaches, right, Rodney? We all go sell insurance at some time. So we racers desperately needed a win last night. It was getting a little difficult in Racerland after playing so well for 12 straight games. And then you could start to see just in the last couple of wins, really since the Bradley win, that just a little casual at times. And that then began to catch up with the team with 4 losses in a row. So last night, and with the expectation of a fight from UIC, with them winning 8 in a row coming in, we knew we had our hands full. And so we matched the effort of UIC, which was really the key to the game that I thought, because they a lot like SIU play very hard, and if you don't match that from the start, then it's uphill the entire time, and we did that, and we made enough plays down the stretch to get a win.
Kenny likes to say all the time, it's the harder playing team's going to win 9 out of 10 times, and that's just something that's been just absent. I mean, quite frankly, for the last couple of weeks. And you could tell immediately last night, it was like there was just a different pop in everything the guys were doing. And it was a welcome change, and certainly got us to the finish line.
We talked about it briefly, Kenny, before you joined, and Jeff, before we were recording. What an odd start to the game last night. Of course, with the Elijah Crawford situation, the game, I mean, such a key player for UIC. And look, we try to see everything on the floor from our vantage point, but there's so much that could be unseen kind of for both of you. I mean, take us just through like what you initially thought. And then all of a sudden when it goes to the monitor review, like, was there even anything on your idea of, hey, this could be a potential ejection? And then clearly, I mean, and I put it up on the screen as I'm asking you guys this question, Ryan Miller took it to Twitter last night. He was not happy about it, and understandably so, especially with some things earlier in that possession as well. Just kind of take us through just more from your spot, because me and Ronnie are like, man, we can only imagine what it would be like in our position as well.
Yeah, I mean, we did. I don't speak for Kenny. I don't think we saw it in the moment, other than immediately you saw Javon Jackson sort of bent over at the waist, and I was like, is he cramping? Like, what's happening? Because he was under some sort of duress. He was trying to hold on to the ball and was just sort of bent over at the waist. And then they went to the monitor, and you're just, monitor reviews nowadays, it's like, well, it's just, it's another day that ends in Y. But then as soon as we saw it, I was like, oh, he popped him in the ribs there. And it did not look like a basketball play. And, and at that point, it just feels like, it's a coin toss what's going to come out of there. And I honestly would have just almost expected a flagrant 1. I just, when they came over and he said, it's a flagrant 2, I was like, I almost took a moment to process, like, oh, he's out. And so, it was jarring, to see our head coach get on there afterwards and defend his team. You don't see that every day, but as we've learned this season, Ryan Miller is going to fight for 40 minutes and 24 hours a day for his guys, no question.
I thought what was interesting when we went back and looked at it is Javon was holding the ball to the left side of his body, and the defender here, and but Crawford came, and you could see it was a closed fist. And when you saw the closed fist, that elevates it. Now in slow motion, it was hard to tell. I think sometimes they'll do that to try to punch the ball out, but the ball was so far away and he hit him on the other side of the body. I think that's what probably in the official's mind made it a little, elevated a little more. But I was the same way. I was like, you're not going to throw him out over that. I mean, it wasn't a rare back, I think it literally was intended to be a basketball play and just went bad. I really didn't see that, that let me try to get a shot in here, or, by by Crawford. And it was unfortunate, I think, for the game. I mean, you hate to lose your best player. And we haven't seen him yet. He didn't play in our first game, and I had watched your game with them, and in their prior game, and was very impressed with him. And so that was a blow to them from the start. Um, and but for him to get thrown out was a surprise.
But I said to Kenny in the moment, I was like, the good news is that their best player arguably is now out. But I said, we didn't see him the first time. And oh, by the way, that just means Ahmad Henderson's going to come in and play 100 miles an hour and be a thorn in our side. And he was again last night. So yay, he's out. But it wasn't like, oh, the game is ours 90 seconds in by any stretch of the imagination.
Kenny, I want to go to for you because you've been on that bench before. You've been a part of a staff. You've been a coach, and when you go through a stretch like Murray did, obviously 4 in a row is not fun for anybody. But to me, what stood out about at least Coach Miller this year, and again, very small sample size, I go back to the non-conference, and man, that McNeese game really got away. I mean, McNeese just guarded you guys nonstop. It wasn't pretty from the jump. Almost very similar to the Belmont game over last week. But then the next game, respond in a big way. Beat a good George Washington team after McNeese. Then you beat the hottest. There was no argument. The hottest team in the Valley was UIC, and you get them and you beat them on the home floor. What do you really credit that to of Coach Miller, his staff within that culture of, man, when a game really goes haywire, which doesn't happen often, but when it did go haywire, that next time out, it seems they really respond in a very positive light.
Yeah, I think Ryan Miller's approach is very pro player. He is a confidence builder. He wants guys to feel good about themselves, and so he gives a lot of leash, especially offensively. Shot selection at times is I think
Go ahead,
needs to
say it,
be
say it.
reeled in a little bit. But his approach is that there's a point we're going to need all 11 of these guys, and I have to have them ready. And so I respect that. What we haven't seen a lot of a firm hand of him, really, drawing a line in the sand and saying, hey, we're not going to play this way anymore. And I think that's what happened the last 2 days in practice. Is it was more of a lot of film time of look at yourself in these mistakes, and we've got to clean these up, or we have no chance. And when we got to the arena last night, multiple coaches, come by. Everyone talked about that the best practice they had had all year was the day before the game, which was obviously encouraging. But you also got to be able to bring that to the floor, and they were able to do that.
We're going to get to Jackson, King, Domon, all of these guys that are at the top of your stat sheet. But the guy that really intrigues me, like so many players in this league, seems like everyone's got this guy, and you've certainly got a guy in Lane Taylor that has, in my opinion, really makes things work. The thing that sticks out to me in league play, 43 assists, 14 turnovers. Kenny, maybe starting with you, Jeff, I'd like to get your input as well. What does Lane Taylor bring to this team that the average fan maybe just oversees?
Well, I'd have a team full of coaches' kids if they were good enough, because of the extra that you get with them of basketball IQ is usually very high, and his is extremely high. And he brings some some toughness, not always has the ability defensively to be as quick as he would like on the ball, but the effort is always there defensively. And then he really knows how Ryan Miller wants to run the offense and how to get guys engaged. It's amazing when you sit in a film session with the team and coaches ask players questions. No one can ever answer because Lane Taylor answers it as soon as it comes out of their mouths. He's got a great understanding of how to play. And when he came here, we had heard his dad's a very successful high school coach in the state of Arkansas, and Lane's the all-time leading scorer in the state. but second all time in assists, and played for his dad. And so, probably the light was pretty green when he was playing for his dad in high school. And so we had heard that maybe shot selection might be a problem with him. But it's almost been the opposite. Jeff and I have talked about, I'd really like to see him look to score more. He did last night early in the game, but he's such a facilitator that he likes doing that as well as scoring. So I think, both of those really help our offense when it gets bogged down, because he knows how to get us into the flow of what Ryan Miller wants.
Man, that was only a 93-second answer. And when Kenny, the Arkansas boy, starts talking about the Arkansas boy and Lane Taylor, I mean, if you didn't know better, Kenny's going to go co-sign a mortgage with this kid before it's all said and done. So the thing about Lane that I think is so calming, like he is just there's a just the dynamic about him is when he's on the floor, the chaos tends to just dials down a little bit because he's in control of everything. I mean, he is, it is just the cliche of cliches, but he is a coach on the floor and he's telling people where to go at times. And there was points, and I remember thinking back to, I think we were in the Cayman Islands. There was, and it was right in front of us, sort of the odd media row setup where it was a late game situation, and a coach was yelling something out about, we need to fight. And he got mad because he's like, don't say that out loud because they're going to hear it. Like he's pulling strings everywhere with the whole thing, but it's just, he doesn't have to score, but just being on the floor, things just work better. And that is where last night got into some foul trouble. Really one of the few times this year that he's been in some foul trouble. And you get worried when he can't come in, but because when he is, he's so impactful without necessarily putting the ball in the basket.
How different is your team, just like Southern's different at this time of the year from when we saw you last? And then I want to sneak another one in, and I'll probably have to close out of this thing because Luke's had enough of my questions. But J.J. Traynor is another guy, much like Taylor, that it's easy to overlook. He's like 5th or 6th on the stat sheet. How has he really helped you guys advance to where you are today compared to where you were the 29th of December?
Jeff, go ahead. I'll let you take that.
JJ is, when we saw him in really the first game of the year against Omaha up in that field of 68 deal, I thought, man, he's got a chance to be Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he had 3 steals, 3 blocks, super active. He there's just more there, and I think that's the part that has it's frustrating because there's more and it's there. And there's times like last night, there was a play, like I said, it was just a mound of bodies underneath the basket. And then the ball comes off the rim and all of a sudden this arm just elevates out of the pack and he just tips it in. You're like, yes, sir, please, more of that. I think one of the best and worst things that happened to him this year was he got really good at hitting 3-pointers. I mean, there was a point even from the jump, every time he would shoot it, it would be like, oh no, hey, it went in. Great. At some point, I mean, he was shooting 40+% from 3, and you're just like, at some point, you're like, all right, man, I guess this is fine. And now it's kind of it's flushed back out where he's down into the lower 30s, and it's just we need him to be. I think for us to be to really be an elite level team. Just that more consistent, not just the flashes, but more consistent where he can be a weak side defender and come over. And he is as bouncy as anybody we got on the roster. And for him to be able to protect the rim from that weak side and block shots and steal, I mean, if he can do that, we can be much improved defensively. And then just his ability to just, if he wants to crash the glass and get up there and go convert that way, I think, he can really, he has helped us. There are many more levels, I think, that his ability to be able to help us.
I think the one area that frustrates coaches with him is that what Jeff said is the ceiling is high, and if his motor would run like a couple of your post players, he has the skills to be amazing. I mean, he was a top 100 guy, went to Louisville, out of high school and didn't work out, goes to DePaul, didn't really work out, gets here he just at times he'll hide on the floor and you don't know he's out there. And the problem, the way Ryan, for the most part has been subbing is that Doman's been coming in and playing most of his minutes at the four, and so they've essentially been splitting minutes. Now, last night Doman played most of his minutes at the three. And so, we'll see how that looks moving forward. But, when you're splitting minutes with those two guys and Doman's really coming on, it's hurt Trainers, more of his value to the team.
I know Saluki fans wish Trainer hid in the first meeting between these two teams. He was the Kid Palm game MVP and was a huge factor, no doubt, in that game. And Kenny, I want to piggyback off of what you were just talking about. It's about Roman Doman. I mean, what a talent. It was really clear early on this year watching your games that this is going to be a guy that Valley fans, when this guy comes to your building and you get the opportunity to see him, you don't see talent like this very often. He's really that gifted. But, to the point that you were making, coming off the start against UIC just last night, Southern this year kind of experimented a little bit due to some reasons out of their control. Davion Sykes was really good off the bench. They thrust him into a starter role and quite honestly really got into a funk. And thankfully, recently, Davion has come back off the bench, and you can see his confidence, and he knows when he's coming and going now in a game, and he's way, way more productive. With Roman, look, I mean, it's easy to see the stats, the numbers, and, man, in the game against Southern, he was a big reason why that game started to get boosted up to a 20-point lead. How has that dynamic been of using him in that role off the bench versus now, again, starting role UIC, of knowing how talented he is, how gifted he is, but you also don't want to screw up where he knows where he's coming and going in a game as well, because that can be it's much harder, I think, than fans realize how those rotations and how guys feel that maybe people on the outside don't give credit enough to coaches in figuring that out.
Yeah, and I think Ron Miller is very aware of that and pretty rigid in his substitute patterns because of that. And last night with Mason Miller was available but had a swollen hand, and so that kind of helped. I think the decision of moving Roman to the three and starting him. I think probably for Roman, I think he wants to play as many minutes as he can, and so I think starting fit him fine. And I would think that that's probably the best interest of our team too, of him playing 30 plus minutes is good. His basketball offensive IQ is amazing. It really knows how to play without the ball in his hands, which he did a lot of that early on. Then he went through a stretch where he had it in his hands a lot and took a few bad shots every couple every game. And now he's gotten both of those going where he's really moving well without the ball. But then when it comes time for him to go, maybe he gets a mismatch and he loves shooting that little Dirk Nowitzki fall away. And Rodney, we coaches, we see that and we just want to throw up till it goes in, he catches that thing, starts his move at 12 feet and shoots it at 17 feet when he takes his step back and is falling away. And I'm like, there's no way that ball's going in. And he's really perfected that. And he's got confidence in shooting it, or, Ryan lets him have some leash there. But his passing last night he's always been a great passer, but last night I thought he really looked to facilitate more too than he has been.
One of the areas, Jeff, in this league, and I don't think it's by accident, that you look at the teams that have had the most productive bench, those have been the teams that have won games. And especially now when you get into this league schedule this year where I forget what day we're playing half of the time with so much short turnaround. I don't want to say it's so much like an NBA schedule, but in many ways, this is probably the most NBA-like schedule there has been. And we all know the goal in St. Louis, Southern right now is looking like they're going to have to be the 4 games in 4 days, but at bare minimum, barring a miracle, 3 games in 3 days, you're going to need some depth. Obviously, Roman Doman has been a big part of why that bench has been so good, but there are so many other pieces too, Jeff. Like, how essential has it been you're not just playing guys to play them. I mean, Coach Miller's playing those guys because he has absolute trust in them. And I think that's why so many folks are high on Murray State and why UIC's had a good productive bench as well. And that's why they were able to stay in the game even without Crawford being, ejected from the game early.
Yeah, last night looking at the box score after the game, I was actually startled. It might have been, if it wasn't the first time, it can't be any more than the second time that our bench was outscored. And the majority of that was just the fact that Ahmad Henderson came in 90 seconds and played the whole game. And that sort of skewed that number. But yeah, I mean, from the jump, Coach Miller has been, redshirting 4 guys. I mean, he was like, I got 11. I'm going to play 11. And it started kind of 10 and a half. And then he kept saying about Brock Weiss, who was the 11th, and was like, his time's going to come. And his time came. And it's not, sometimes it's 90 seconds. Sometimes he'll get 5 minutes, but, comes in and makes a little bit of an impact. That has been the theory all year, is everybody's going to, for the most part, play. Nobody was playing more than 25, 26 minutes. He wanted to play fast. And he'd said, play as hard as you can, get tired, come out, we'll get somebody else in, get your breath, we'll get you back in there. And I think there was always going to be some diminishing returns on that theory as the season went on, when you get into league play and everybody knows everybody, and there's just too many good coaches in this league to just keep, what was working in November is not going to be working in February. But I think Ryan's hand got forced a little bit. You lose 4 games, and we didn't just lose 4 games. We looked bad for 4 games. And so it was last night. Yep, Mason Miller's out, but he only played 7 guys. 8, 9, and 10 played 5 minutes, 5 minutes, and 3 minutes. I mean, that is by far the tightest rotation. I think Doman played 37. Fred King played 31. I mean, those are giant numbers for this team this year. So he's got those. He's got the bullets there if he wants them. I'm just fascinated here as we roll towards St. Louis, just how much contraction the rotation will continue to have as we move forward. But he's got them, and he will play 11. I mean, like I said, even if he's not thrilled with those guys and maybe their production, they're all going to get a chance. They're going to get a chance to not produce at any point during the game.
I think too that for him, that he likes to play that way. He wants to play fast. But I think he also realizes, Roddy, from a coaching standpoint, that, keeping guys engaged throughout the year. I'm a big proponent of that when you recruit depth and commit to play it, that it changes your practices because of the competition you have every day. And then all boats rise together. Whereas, in the past, you're going to play 6.5, 7 guys every night, and half the team's not ever going to see the floor, or they're not pushing guys every day in practice. And so then they don't really get better. And I think Ryan's committed to that philosophy of that. I want to recruit depth, but I've got to commit to play them if I'm going to do that. And so there's at times, we've wanted to see it shrink a little bit. Hey, let's get him back in. Let's get him back. I'm always making subs over there that I shouldn't be making. And but his big picture is that, for me to keep these guys, I've got to have them engaged throughout the year and know that they're going to get playing time. And they are. The good thing is that they're all capable. They do some things better than others. But it's not like you're putting some guys out there that can't play.
Everybody has had a moment this year, and significant moments, 1 through 11. I mean, even 9, 10, 11, they have had moments that have impacted winning. And to Kenny's point, it keeps them engaged, and it might be, hey, you're only going to get 3 minutes tonight. You might get 11 minutes tomorrow. And that's just on Friday night. And so that's big picture. It's certainly been beneficial.
There's a lot of Signetti madness where I live in Evansville, obviously in Indiana, the success Indiana had, especially with their ability to bring guys from James Madison into Indiana and then become really empowered a Big Ten program. And then he continued in the transfer portal. He brings a quarterback that his home state, his home city wouldn't take out of high school. And, part of what Signetti says, I think, resonates with a lot of people in all sports and maybe in the business world also, production over potential. And one guy that we were all, quite frankly, I'm not going to lie to you two guys, we were hoping wasn't going to be any good was going to be Fred King, a guy that you're thinking, well, he was at Creighton, and look, your numbers tend to play out. What do they say about us, Kenny? We are what our record says we are.
Right.
But Fred King is 7 rebounds away in conference play, 7 total rebounds from averaging a double-double. What have you guys seen now that you have a chance to really look back in June, November, December, and just how he's really made himself a guy that truly was able to give production over just that other potential word?
Well, Kenny's angling for a 3% agent fee of on-court duties this year, so I'll let him serve this up because he had a long conversation post-game with Fred about this last night.
I told him last night that I want to be his representative when just talking to the perimeter players about them not throwing him the ball when he's open, and that we need to go in the locker room and have some discussions. And Fred is the nicest young man on the team.
100%.
And he said, "Hey, I'm just part of the team. I just want the team to win. That's fine. If I get shots, I get shots." And I'm like, no. That you need to demand the basketball when you get it. And it's not his personality, but I think for the Racers to be really good, he needs to have 12, 14 shots a game. And now he's going to get fouled, and so some of that gets skewed for shot attempts. But last night he had 9 shots, and really, I don't know, Jeff, probably 4 of his 6 buckets were offensive rebounds. I mean, he just he goes to the glass relentlessly. The one thing that caused him problems early on is that he get fatigue fouls. And so we play very fast, and so he's having to change ends, and you could just watch him about that 3 or 4 minute mark that he'd been in a row. Then he's gonna leave his feet or lean on a guy or push and get that foul, and all of a sudden he's got 2 with 12 minutes left in the first half. And so and credit Ryan, they've done a great job of recognizing that and getting him out before he gets it. So they'll run him hard 3 or 4 minutes at the most and get him out and then get him back in. Now, last night he played more and did it without fouling. But it's, the Belmont game, got 2 touchback fouls and he's out of the game in the first 3 minutes. And it just, it's so difficult. So they really have done a good job monitoring that. But what great hands and feet he has. He catches everything. If he get his hand, it's not fair to him, but Popeye Jones had that ability that if it touches his hands on the offensive rebound, he's pulling it in. And his post moves, are really good. Now starting to see some double teams, and he's dealt with that pretty good. Times he'll hang on to the ball a little bit in the double team and get in some trouble, but just a great young man, wants to do anything to win. But I really think his utilization needs to continue to rise if we're going to compete, to try to win the tournament.
Much like Lane Taylor, his just presence on the floor is so important because of the gravitational pull of 10 eyes on the floor. Like, just him being in it, things are just different. And there's times he will run up and down the floor 10 times and Kenny will get frustrated because he never touches the ball. But just him being there, things are just different. They just feel differently. You'll see perimeter guys think they're going to attack, and they're like, oh, there's 6'9", 275 waiting on me, and they'll circle back out and, like, they make a business decision. Ahmad Henderson did that last night, a little 5'10" on 6'10". He was like, I've got some other plans here. So, but it's just, he's got to be on the floor. And that's step one. Step two, get as I said, feed the beast. Give him the ball because good things happen. He's gotten to where he's in the mid 60s shooting free throws now, so it doesn't feel like a liability that he's going to get fouled and really just hurt us in that regard. But great feet, great hands, and Kenny's just an awesome human. I just need him to be a little more selfish, and I know that's hard to push sometimes. But boy, if he was in there, just like give me the ball. I don't know what his numbers could be because there's not many in this league that just physically can match up to him.
Javon Jackson, the transfer things really work for him. It has for some of the players throughout the country. It doesn't work for others, but averaging 16.7 in a league that scouts extremely well, as you guys alluded to, and we know great coaches in this league and great preparation. What's the makeup of Javon Jackson to be able to go from one Valley school to the next, fit in what appears to us seamless, and really be productive?
I was talking about this last week with somebody. I said, I think back to when we were all mocking the preseason watch list from the conference back in October, and Murray State put 6 guys on there, because I think the coaches were the ones that said, hey, here's our watch list. Javon Jackson was not one of those 6. And so I think on some level internally there was, hey, we know this kid can play in this league, but I think at least the early returns, they had been a little caught off guard. How good. I mean, Kenny and I sitting again back to the first game against Omaha up in Sioux Falls, and he just pounded the right hand and so strong and physical and just finished at the rim over and over. And Kenny said at some point during one of the breaks, he's like, this is awesome. There's just teams are going to see film and they're just going to sit on that right hand and make him do something else. And then eventually Javon's like, that's fine, I'll go left. It was just, he started pulling stuff out. Now, the last couple of weeks, it has been, teams are playing him differently. It's gotten harder for him. He's not getting fouled. I mean, he's been so good finishing, whether through contact or getting to the free throw line and shooting 86%. It's gotten harder for him. And so I think that the main thing right now for him is just to continue just to have some patience and not try to force stuff. Because when his feet are set and he's got the shoulder square and got a little time, he is a very, very good three-point shooter. He gets trigger happy and wants to fire quickly and things aren't set. And then he'll miss everything type of deal. So he has been, look, we saw him smoke us in that double overtime game in Chicago last year. And I was like, golly, we got him. That's great. But I still think that the big picture for the whole year, he has far exceeded what sort of the expectations were going to be. Because up until a week ago, when things really went sideways for this team, however large your conversation wanted to be about the player of the year in this league, he was in that conversation.
Yeah, I think his determination offensively has got a little street toughness in him, and that helps him being able to finish, being able to drive deep. He has had to learn the last couple of weeks that when he starts that, dribble, when it gets more than a 1, 2, 3 go to the basket move, he gets in trouble because there's a second defender coming a lot of times now. Last night he had 6 turnovers. And when he gets into that mode, then he's less effective. But when he plays within the flow and the floor is spread enough that there's space in there, and Fred King's so good at screening inside that he gets some pathways to the rim, and just an unbelievable finisher. He's one of those guys that he doesn't elevate. He's not a great athlete, but he's his upper body's strong enough. He can generate the contact, get some separation, and make it. I mean, he's concentrating on getting that thing to fall, and he's had really the first 20 games very successful in doing that. The last few games has been 14, 15, 16 points on 12, 13, 14 shots, and that's where I think he has to tighten it up a little bit and just pass the ball and let it come back to him. But he loves the moment. He loves the big play, the big shot. He wants to be the guy. So that's great to have that makeup on your team.
He obviously hit huge free throws late in the game and in the first game between these two teams. And Round 2 will be here on Friday. And I'm so glad that you guys got to see this up close and personal, that you noticed my partner, Rodney Watson. He asked his first 2 questions and said I wasn't going to let him back in at all. And guess what? I let him back in. Like, can you guys talk to Rodney about having more faith in that I'm going to allow him to be set up? Like, come on, Kenny. Like,
what I observed
This ought to
was
be awesome.
he
This ought to be awesome.
he just took the time. He you didn't give him anything. He just took it and
Get me the
said,
ball, Kenny.
Yes.
Get me the
yes.
ball.
At times you got to just, these play-by-play guys, they get so they want to look at themselves in the mirror and they want, they get all so proud of themselves. Sometimes you just got to take it from them. You just got to show them.
I have no rebuttal. I have no rebuttal at all. I mean, really, he's really got me pegged. I mean, we've known each other a long time. These last couple of years, it's a lot of time on the road, and unfortunately he has access to the on-off button for me too. So at times it's just like I've heard enough, and we're gonna, I give Kenny his time. Just hopefully the game. It's only a 30-minute pregame show, buddy. Just keep it moving. We'll land the plane here at some point, but. Yeah,
I tell you what, I watch and listen to you guys, and I love the way you guys work together, and I think about how Jeff and I have worked together, and just how easy it is, and I see that in you guys too. That and we truly try to make it fun, and show our warts, when we're on there too. And I see that in you guys too. And I think that makes such a good team.
It's fun, man. It's what we get to do. Sports is fun. We all want to, when it comes to the actual job, and Jeff knows this, and we've had so many conversations about, I know everyone is so enthralled right now that we're talking about the details of our job here in the podcast, but we all want to be perfectionists, and we all want to be spot on and describe it the best ways we can. But at the end of the day, if we all aren't having fun, if you and Jeff aren't having fun, if me and Rodney aren't having fun, guess what? Odds are the people and the fans who are listening are not having fun. We have to have fun and really share and showcase that for anyone else to be a part of it. Hey, before we end on this rivalry, I do want to talk about Southern specifically, but also the league as a whole, because I know, Jeff, obviously you've watched it closely. Kenny, you do too, with everything in all the games. I told Rodney last night when we were leaving CEFCU Arena, I've been a part of a lot, not as many teams as you guys, and definitely not as many as Coach Watson. Man, this year for Southern is so weird. There's been 8 of their 13 losses where they've had a second half lead. That almost seems like jokingly, and I say this jokingly, but let's just say the game's going to be tied at 70 with 5 minutes to go on Friday. Let's just flash forward to that moment on Friday. Let's just put 5 minutes on the clock and play, because that's what it's been like for SIU this year. But it's not just SIU. I think of Indiana State, the Sycamores towards the bottom of the league, yet they've had so many opportunities. I mean, they've been able to beat an Illinois State and Belmont this year for their league wins, and they thumped Evansville last night. There are just so many close games throughout the league this year. Just for you guys, can you really remember, a season where it truly feels like every night you're like, well, that's not surprising to look at the scoreboard?
This has been kind of a running gag, I guess, or bit between Kenny and I the last week and a half even, is just like, okay, I'll give you everybody in the league. I'm going to take Evansville off the table because I think we can all agree Evansville is they are 11 out of 11 this year. The other 10, if you have you get to pick the team you get to play on Friday night. They're your pick in St. Louis. Anybody you want, who you want, and it's like, I don't know. And last night, Kenny goes, we see 54-50, and he goes, I don't want to play those suckers. And you guys, it's just like it does every team. You're just like, I want nothing to do with them, which I think is just, it speaks to St. Louis has the chance, and usually these are the years it ends up being 1 versus 2 on Sunday. But at the same time, this could be just a wild deal because nobody's really that interested in playing Valpo. Nobody's really that interested in playing Indiana State. Nobody's interested in playing you guys. It's just, you got Drake and Northern Iowa sitting there at 6-6. We really, they just de-pantsed us last week. It's just like, This is a free for all. And so I think as much as anything, last year we just talked about the math of you really wanted to be in the top 4 because there was too many good teams that like the math didn't make sense of being able to win 4 games in 4 days. And it's like, I think that really applies this year just because literally everybody is good. I don't know if anybody is great. That will sort of play itself out. Everybody's good. And the pure math of you got to beat 4 of these suckers in 4 days. Please let me just beat 3 because that's the only real path to cutting the nets down.
Yeah, and there's just no slappies, right? There's nobody that you just say, okay, hey, good. Next week there's a win, for a one bid league, for this league to be so tough, it's like, the old OVC days, literally in August, we'd sit there and circle 8 wins when you got the conference schedule. And you're like, okay, we're going to sweep them, and them. So now let's look at everybody else. And this, I've been amazed at just how good the coaching is. The game preparation is elite, and there's great players. And for that to come together and only be a one bid league, it just drives me crazy because it's just, I look around the country at other teams that are playing, and if our league had those teams on neutral floors, you'd be getting a lot of wins. We don't ever, it's hard to even get them. The pay games you're not going to get. Maybe you get in an MTE; those are gone away. Basically, the Power Four doesn't want to play anyone in those anymore, and so it's I hate that the system that we're in, this league only has, one winner at the end, because it is just so good. It really is. I mean, I think Belmont is very, very good. They're probably better than, most nights than the rest of us. But then the other 9 teams, there's not I think the success Murray State's had is because we can make free throws down the stretch. I really think that's the difference, that we've been able to close out games we won because we've made free throws down the stretch. We're a really good free throw shooting team. Last night, UIC misses a bunch of free throws that they normally don't, or that games could go either way. So it's tough, from a coaching standpoint. It's got to be frustrating to try to gain ground in this league because there's not easily teams to hop when you're trying to move up the ladder.
I mean, even last year, Missouri State and Valpo and Evansville and Indiana State, kind of in that bottom 4, it was like there was such a separation. There's Evansville, and then there's 1 through 10, and that's. I said, as a basketball fan, it's awesome. As somebody who's rooting like hell for one of these teams, it is a nightly root canal, and it's just. And we expect no Novocaine Friday night as we roll into Banterra Center.
Yeah, it's been a crazy year, and man, there's still a lot of basketball left. And I want to end on this note. And when we were heading into to game 1, Rodney and I talked about this on our podcast, so we know our feelings are obviously very well shared about it. And I want to hear from you guys. When you look at the Valley, there no doubt can be, hey, trying to get really good crowds for Arch Madness are no doubt most important for the league. And to me, when you look at the landscape of the league, the 2 teams that could really change how Arch Madness is viewed, one, because Rodney's lived it. I mean, he's been in that building when people would joke, and Jeff, you obviously covered the teams during that time as well, when people would joke that it was the Saluki Invitational because of how many Maroon Saluki fans would go. We clearly saw that in Evansville with Racer Nation and the support that they gave Murray when they were competing for those league championships and how they would come out in droves in St. Louis. Yes, we understand this is a biased podcast because we're talking about from a Saluki Racer perspective, but I really want both of you to really chime in of how important this league can be viewed and how essential Arch Madness can be when the Salukis and Racers are good because of just the pride that both these fan bases really have.
I just think, we came into this league for a reason, and I think a lot of it was the potential, and I think that, to your point, everybody just kind of had to keep looking over there at the Ford Center every time we're playing in the OVC championship game, and 5, 6, 8,000 folks from Murray. I mean, our home arena holds 8,000, and it was like, and it was the Racer Invitational there in Evansville. I mean, there was just no, I mean, it was literally a home game for us because of the thousands upon thousands of people that would come. And so I think it's, we have not been fortunate enough to get to Saturday, but I think that in St. Louis, but if that happens, you will see the thousands descend. And I know the folks in the Valley office are like, yes, please. We've been waiting. That's why we brought you. We need some restaurants serving more food and hotel rooms booked for you guys to come up. So it's going to be awesome. And and that was sort of a jealous standpoint of being able to, even on Friday, just to be up there and just to see all the people from Bradley and see and you guys haven't been elite the last few years, but see you got still a ton of folks and Illinois State, and I mean, just like, I can't wait for the nation, the Racer Nation, to converge. That it's going to be awesome, and I think that'll be kind of the final piece of, maybe now we're going to have to win it at some point, I think, to maybe ultimately earn the ultimate relevance with the Valley old timers. But I think that to finally kind of show up, make it to a Saturday. We got to do that. We got to check that box off first, but to make it to a Saturday and to have that throng of people there, I think that'll finally get some people's attention. Like, oh, okay, this is the Murray State we've heard about for all these years, and now we kind of get to see him on the big stage.
I think our fan base can be, like most fan bases, can be a little fickle on based if you're playing well or not too, and we just haven't gone into the tournament with much confidence the first the first 3 years. And so if we can kind of right the ship down the stretch here and finish with some confidence, I think our fans are ready to follow the team and really make a showing. But I think the last 3 years it's been, well, they win a game or two, then we'll go, and we just hadn't been able to do that yet.
Well, you guys can right the ship. Just wait till after Friday. Okay. So, yeah.
Hey, you know what? The only thing better than coming to Carbondale and winning at Banterra Center is coming back and doing it a second time in the same year. Unfortunately, I hope we're not going to have an opportunity to do that this year. Once is plenty for us. But I just,
Hey, I say, all jokes aside, I'm trying to remember that I should have had the number in front of me, but I mean, the happiest guy is Brendan Mullins, because I think he's won like 8 in a row in this series, dating back to when he was an assistant.
One way or the other.
Yeah, it's like, Brendan's really riding the hot hand. So whichever side he's on, I was joking with him. I told him after the first game, I was like, you were a part of a 20-point comeback on the opposite end the last time. I was hoping it'd be that way again, but of course it didn't quite get over the hump back there in December, which in many ways feels like that was 2 years ago. With how the seasons can go. I mean, we could talk to you guys all day, and I really hope the genuine respect that we have for you guys. And it's like I said, everyone loves to make a big deal about a rivalry, and it should be. And I really hope it gets more intense. Mm-hmm. And as Coach Watson said last night, we had Chris Lowry on a podcast while he said he hated Illinois State. And it's like, a little hatred is good. You kind of need some of that in today's day and age. But that is far from to describe our friendship, and that's truly what it is with you guys. You guys do an outstanding job, and we look forward to seeing you here on Friday. It's kind of the bummer when I know we're playing each other. I know I can't listen to you guys because we're in the middle of our broadcast too. So, but we appreciate you guys, and definitely appreciate you guys taking time to come on and join us, and definitely for our fans to be able to hear you guys.
Well, I appreciate you guys both, and Luke. I've told you this before. I mean, every time I see you, it's a big hug, and I'm so happy to see you. And the instances we're in the same building at the same time, but I will push you down a flight of stairs to get us a win on Friday. Just so you know.
I won't, even make fun of that blue jacket you used to wear at that other school.
Yes, we won't bring that up. But what I will also say is too, and I meant to say this earlier as well, It's just such an honor, Jeff, that we have a guy that's your only guest on the history of Morning in the Valley, that it started as Morning in the Valley and ended as Valley Overtime at Night in Rodney Watson. I still believe set the record for the longest interview on your Morning in the Valley. And I told you, and I gave you the heads up that this could go long. And my goodness, I think, did Rodney hold the record? Is he still?
1 hour and 6 minutes. And my father, who is an avid listener, the next day he went, "This Coach Watson guy, he likes to talk, huh?" And I said, "Yeah, well," he said, "he's a storyteller, Dad, and he'll give you the whole thing."
Hey, brother, if you don't know how to use your editing machine, that's your fault, man. I gave you plenty of material. It's up to you to chop it up, baby.
Big thanks to Kenny and Jeff for joining us here. And man, we talked about the racers a lot, and we'll let that carry the conversation here, Coach Watts. I want to end it on Mike Glenn. Many people have been like, hey, what's the difference between a jersey and a number retired? When a number is retired, that number won't be worn yet again. A jersey is different. Jersey will be sitting up there. The number 34 could be worn at another time within the Saluki history. But regardless, a jersey retirement is a very big deal. And what this guy has meant, I'm sure you can relate to this too. When I first got here and started talking about, doing all these different podcasts and conversations, which we did one with Mike when he was here back in the summer, right? You got to get Mike Glenn. He is like, I had so many Salukis be like, he is my favorite Saluki. And look, we can go through all of his numbers, and they're really quite astonishing. 1,878 career points. It's fourth all-time on the SIU scoring list. Of course, the 76-77 team won a Missouri Valley Conference title, went to the NCAA tournament, also a Sweet 16. But what's also impressive, a two-time first-team academic All-American. He didn't just do it on the floor. He did it in the classroom as well. And he earned a degree in mathematics, which is always just just stands out about Mike. And, of course, goes on into the NBA, drafted in the second round in 1977 by the Chicago Bulls. Also played for the Buffalo Braves, the New York Knicks, Hawks, and Bucks during a 10-year professional career. I keep going on and on about his profile, his bio, but what was so evident when we talked to him last summer, how much pride that he had of being a Saluki. And he came to Southern with an opportunity to go to North Carolina. When he's deciding between those type of schools and coming to be a Saluki and to end up, if everyone loves the Mount Rushmore talk, who's on your Mount Rushmore, of your program. We know that Walt Frazier is Saluki basketball, but man, Mike Glenn is on that conversation, if not clearly on the Mount Rushmore of what Saluki basketball has meant through the years.
I didn't have the pleasure to ever watch him play. I suppose I might have watched him play in 77 on television because I grew up in Central Illinois. I watched Indiana State with Larry Bird and those guys, but, the games weren't televised like they were today. And I know that they had a great win over the Indiana State team back then. But man, Mike Glenn, the first thing I hear, two things I hear first. One of the kindest, nicest human beings, regardless of what his athletic skill was all about. That's number one. And I've had a chance to meet him a couple of times. Man, does that hold up? What a genuinely nice, just a wonderful person. Talk about the second thing I hear a lot, the best shooter, without argument, the best shooter ever to play, not only at SIU, but some will say he might be in the best shooter that in terms of mechanically sound shooter, maybe the best people have ever seen. His nickname when he got the NBA, the Stinger, and played 10 years in the NBA. A lot of that was with the Hawks. He's probably best known for his time at the Hawks, but he's played at many NBA teams back when the rosters weren't nearly as full and there weren't nearly as many teams when he played. Played on a great team. Coach Lambert assembled a tremendous talent. Herman Williams, big part of that, who we lost not long ago. Herman was a huge part of that great talent. Mike Glenn, guys coming out of the South, coming up to Southern Illinois, and I can't wait for the day. So deserving. Here's the one thing about retiring the jersey. if you put that jersey on someday, you wear that number, you better know what it means because you're going to be compared to him, and rightfully so. So if 34 is your number, you better be able to uphold it. And it's not just, no one's going to expect you to have the jump shot that Mike Glenn had. If you do, great. But they are going to expect you to act the way Mike Glenn did, on the court, off the court. The last thing I'll say, what I was always told about with Mike Glenn, what we called the arena, now the Banterra Center. The Banterra Center was open 24 hours, 3 shifts. So there were custodians in the arena and in the Banterra Center 24 hours a day. And it was very common for Mike Glenn to come down into the arena to the Banterra Center and shoot at midnight. Chris Carr uses this phrase. He goes, when you're to be good, to play at the highest level, you've got to embrace lonely. You've got to be good with being lonely in the gym. And if you've ever done that, especially at hours like midnight, like Mike Glenn did, Chris Carr did, and other Troy Hudson and other pros, it's lonely in there. It's quiet. And there were no tossbacks. There were no guns that can shoot the ball back to you. So you're shooting the ball and you're going to get it yourself. And they just talk about how he would talk about it, how he would come, and that was a good time. And then he'll talk, I'm sure, about, the deaf and his parents and their with the school of the deaf that he was a part of, and his appreciation for that cause as well. What a wonderful man. Southern, so wise and hanging that jersey for all to see and to enjoy and to celebrate as long as that building stands.
Absolutely. So well deserved. And what's neat is the Dog Pound is going to have some special jerseys that they're going to give away. So if you're a Saluki student and you don't want to come to the game, check these out now. It is special Mike Glenn jerseys, got Little Egypt on them with his number. Of course, on the back, they got the Dog Pound on them. If you're a student and you don't want this for free, come on now. Where you got to be?
Mike, Luke, is it too late to enroll in school? Because I think I want to get those. I may get a class online or something, just get a jersey.
Just saying, unfortunately, the jersey games that I've busted out have not gone well. So if there may be a jersey that's worn here on Friday and a new one, hopefully Mike Glenn can bring some good juju, because I can't remember the number. I had it, but the last handful that I've busted out the jersey, Coach Watson, haven't gone really well. So I am going to say, but a little hesitant on busting out the jersey a ton. Hey, we talked about Murray a ton with Jeff Bidwell and Kenny Roth, and our podcast has been a really long one today. So let's just end on this note, Coach Watson. What I think most of all you want to see from SIU is just to build off of what you did against Illinois State. You, of course, hope it's going to be in a win, but you just want to see that defensive identity and the rebounding tenacity continue to be there for this group. I think of all what you want to see if you're a Saluki fan here down the stretch, and like I described and probably did a poor job of it, look, it's going to take a miraculous run for Southern to not play on Thursday in St. Louis. It's just where you're at in the conference standings. You're going to have to go on a heck of a run here. And this team is more than capable of doing that, by the way. I want to make that clear. That's not out of the ordinary for this team to potentially win every game the rest of the way. We also know the other side of it. The frustrating part is Southern could also lose to any team on their schedule the rest of the way. But barring that, you're going to have to go on a run. Even best case scenario, you're going to have to win. And you heard Jeff Bidwell talk about it. You're going to have to beat 3 teams in a row to ultimately earn that bid to the NCAA tournament. I think that's what you hope to see within this month for SIU, is to play well, but can you find a way to stack 3 wins or whatever it's got to be in a row by the time you get to St. Louis? I know that's kind of not really specifically to the Murray game here on Friday, but this is a chance now for the Salukis to build off of what was a great win on the road to now, to me, what I'm kind of looking for the next month is, can you see that? Do you see this group having the chance to sustain it over time to where you go to St. Louis, and whether it's Thursday when you start, Friday when you start, you feel like absolutely this group can stack 3 games in 3 days or stack consecutive performances in a row.
You hit it right on the head, man. Southern's got to prove themselves a lot of things. They proved last night they can play gritty, tough, nasty defense and come out of this thing. Your point about can you win that many in March, back-to-back days? You got to do it in the season. Though, yeah, we did it. We get on a run. These are young kids, man. They'll have enough in their tank. They have to play 4 days or 3 days. They will. They got to continue to play gritty, tough defense. Southern can't outthink themselves. It's the Jimmies and Joes, not the X's and O's. And that really holds true. Southern's got to believe in their Jimmies and Joes, and they can't fall in love with their scheme and the X's and O's thinking that that's what does it. It's the Jimmies and Joes, their effort that we saw last night. They're going to play a team Friday that's going to shoot 43% of their shots from 3. And so that defense is going to be tested. That 3-point defense is going to be tested, and the defensive rebounding that connects that 3-point defense. Conversely, they're playing a team that really shoots well inside the 2. They shoot 50, the numbers say 57%, just less than 3 out of 5 shots of their shots come inside 2, and it comes from more than Fred King. They really score well. Southern's got to be tough, but they've got to finish the defensive possession off with the defensive rebound. That's going to continue to be the test. It's going to be another rock fight. I think Southern has the makeup, and I think they embrace the non-sexy thing, which I love. You start talking about numbers and trying to piece people. Oh, we're going to score a bunch of points. We're going to play fast break, run around all that stuff. At the end of the day, especially this time of year, look how teams like Kansas really win. They win with gritty, tough defense. Okay, sure, we got to score points, no doubt about it. But we got to stack those defensive possessions with not only challenging the shot, making a miss, but pulling that rebound down, and then you take off and take care of that basketball. Let's not talk guys into turnovers. Let's let them play and have good flow. Our guys know how to play fast on their own, and it's been something Coach Nagy's really stressed. So let's really start putting those things together. Man, I like the makeup of this team, and it's not fake because we saw it in Normal, Illinois.
Well, as we said, tip-off will be at 7 o'clock on Friday night, which means our pregame coverage will begin at 6 on Saluki Radio. Big thank you again to Kenny Roth, Jeff Bidwell for joining us here on the podcast. As always, for the Hall of Famer Rodney Watson, I am Luke Martin. Saying so long, Saluki Nation. We will talk to you on Friday night from Banterra Center. Go Dogs!
This has been Saluki Royalty, the official podcast for Saluki Athletics. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review however you listen. The preceding has been a Learfield presentation on the Saluki Sports Network.